Hello, welcome to the Hennepin County Library African American Storytime, where we play and sing and write and read and talk about freedom. My name is Yandia, and I do story times at the Champlain Library. I'm so happy to see all of you. This is a very special segment of our story time because this week we are remembering Juneteenth, June 19th, 1865, when in Galveston, Texas, it was announced that all enslaved people were free. Who were the enslaved people? Who were the slaves? They were people who were stolen from their homes in Africa and brought to this land that we now call America to work very hard on huge farms called plantations. They were not paid for their work. They had to do everything they were told to do. They were forced to work without pay. They were forced to work for 12 or more hours a day with very little food or water. Parents, today your children are going to be hearing words like freedom, liberty, slave, Emancipation Proclamation, plantation, protest. If you need to, you can stop the video to make sure they understand the meaning of these words. Usually on Juneteenth, we really celebrate. We're happy to celebrate the day that the slaves became free. But this year, our hearts are very sad because a few weeks ago, as we were getting ready to celebrate Juneteenth, our brother George Floyd was murdered by a policeman whose job it was to protect his life. We are sad because this does not feel like freedom. That policeman took away Mr. Floyd's right to live. This is an example of why we protest by kneeling when we are expected to feel and act like we have freedom. So our song today has to do with just that. We're going to sing a song called Sometimes I Feel Like a Motherless Child, a child who doesn't feel protected, a child whose freedom has been taken away. Sometimes I feel like a motherless child. Sometimes I feel like a motherless child. Sometimes I feel like a motherless child, a long way from home, a long way from home. Let's sing it one more time. We'll sing the first line 3 times and then we'll say a long way from home. Ready? Sometimes I feel like a motherless child. Sometimes I feel like a motherless child. Sometimes I feel like a motherless child, a long way from home, a long way from home. Thank you for joining me in singing that song. Our story for today is called Juneteenth for Maisie. It's a story about Juneteenth, the day all slaves became free. This is an important story because 2 years before Juneteenth, President Abraham Lincoln had signed the Emancipation Proclamation, and that was in 1863. This document freed some of the slaves, but not all. But on June 19th, 1865, all slaves became free. Juneteenth for Maisie by Floyd Cooper. You can see the picture of people jubilating, celebrating Juneteenth. And there's Maisie. This must be Maisie. Everyone say hi, Maisie. Hi. She doesn't look very happy though. Let's find out why. Maisie wants to play outside, but Maisie wants to play outside, but it's too late. It's getting dark, Maisie. It's time to stay inside. Maisie wants a cookie, but it's time for bed. Not now, little one. It's too close to bedtime. Maisie wants to stay up late, but she is too little. Bedtime is the rule, sweet girl. We've all felt this way, right? Let's see if she'll get some help with how she's feeling. Who do you go to when you feel sad or disappointed? Maybe your mom or your dad or your auntie or your cousin, or maybe you just hug your teddy bear. Who did Maisie go to? Her dad. Let's see what he says to cheer her up. Why so grumpy, Sugar Bear? Asks Dad. I can't go where I want, have what I want, or do what I want, answers Maisie. Well, tomorrow you can have a celebration, says Dad. What are we celebrating? Asks Maisie. What are they celebrating? You should know. We'll celebrate the day your great 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 grandpa Mose crossed into liberty. What is liberty? Well, we're celebrating the freeing of all slaves. Could it mean the same thing? Hmm. The day will be celebrated by us and many more families on a day called Juneteenth. Dad lifts Maisie in his arms. Is she happy now? I think so. I bet you're tired of hearing no all the time. Well, great 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 grandpa Mose heard no even more. Grandpa Mose worked in fields that stretched all the way to the sunset. What did we talk about earlier? The slaves worked on huge plantations, huge farms. They were so big, they had to be called plantations. He and the other slaves would be bone tired, but they had to keep going. Their masters wouldn't let them quit. But as they worked, they thought about freedom. When a person is a slave, they're not free to go where they want, have what they want, or do what they want. The slaves thought about how their lives would change for good if they became free. And that's what we're hoping for today, that there will be a change in the way police officers treat Black and brown peoples. Everybody say change, change. Say it louder. Change. We need change. And before they finally went to sleep at night, They prayed about freedom and made plans for a change and a better future. Some slaves ran north to freedom, following a bright star in the sky. See the star? The life of a slave was not easy because the white people who owned them were very, very mean to slaves. They sweat and they bled and they cried till those cries were quieted by a single proclamation from a brave president, Abraham Lincoln. Grandpa Mose heard that proclamation read from the balcony of the hotel on that warm June day in Galveston, Texas. There are all the slaves listening to the proclamation being read by someone up there in the hotel. Grandpa Mose heard nothing but cheers, saw nothing but happiness, and felt nothing but pride, shared by all those around him. The cheers became dancing, the dancing became celebrating. It went on and on into the night. Grandpa Mose and the others had found freedom. They continued to work, but this time they were paid for their hard work. So they worked and they saved their money. And they never forgot that moment they heard, the moment that changed their lives forever. What moment was that? What date was that? June 19th, 1865. But things weren't perfect. Black people still struggled to stand shoulder to shoulder with white people. They still weren't treated as equals. It wasn't easy, but they never gave up. Now, when you stand shoulder to shoulder with someone, it means you're equal to them. But white people who didn't own slaves anymore did not want to treat Black people as equals. Even though they were now free, white people still wanted to tell Black people, no, you can't go where you want. You can't have what you want. And you can't do what you want. They still wanted them to feel like slaves. It wasn't easy, but they never gave up. Say never give up. Never give up. Say it louder. Never give up. And every year on Juneteenth, they remembered. They marched for jobs. They lobbied for schools and the right to vote. They shouted for opportunity. Do you recognize? Do you recognize this bridge? It's the Edmund Pettus Bridge in Montgomery, Alabama, where Martin Luther King led a march for equality in 1965. So remember, in 1865, Juneteenth took place. In 1865, June 19th, the slaves became free. In 1965, a century later, 100 years later, Martin Luther King led a march for equality. They were still fighting for the right to stand shoulder to shoulder with white people 100 years later. Now, third graders, fourth graders, let's do the math. I'm getting my marker and my paper ready. So, we are going to subtract 1865 from 1965. How many years was it? From the time the slaves became free to the time Martin Luther had to lead a march for equality. 5 take away 5 is 0. 6 take away 6 is 0. 9 take away 8 is 1. 1 take away 1 is 0, and we don't put that 0 there. 100 years. So Black people had been waiting to be equal, to be treated as equals to white people for 100 years. We have more math to do. What year is this? We are in the year 2020. Okay. Martin Luther King led that march in 1965. Let's do the math. How long since then have we been waiting? Have Black people been waiting to be treated like human beings by the police? Okay, third, fourth, and fifth graders, let's do the math. 0 can't take away 5, so we have to borrow from the 2. So this becomes a 10. 10 take away 5 is 5. Okay. 1 can't take away 6, so we have to borrow. This 0 is going to become a 10. This 2 is going to become a 1. So this 1 is going to become 11. Okay. 11 take away 6 is 5. And that 10 became a 9 because we borrowed it, because we borrowed 1 to make that an 11. So 9 take away 9 is 0, and 1 take away 1 is 0, and we don't put those zeros. So since 1965, we've been waiting 55 years to be treated equally in this country. Black people have waited too long to be treated equally to white people in America. We are still waiting to be able to stand shoulder to shoulder with white people. All right, thank you for helping me do that. Let's find our page again. There we go. No one should have to wait 155 years to be treated equally, to be treated fairly, to be treated like a human being. So every year on Juneteenth, they celebrated and remembered. The elders taught the young children about Juneteenth, just like I'm teaching you. They learned and they grew. You can see this is an African American girl in a classroom of mostly white children. This was another sign that Black people did not give up. They had protested, shouted, held up signs that said Black children had the right to go to the same good schools and use the same new textbooks as white children did. And as you can see, she's sitting shoulder to shoulder with white students. They forgave. Our people had to forgive white people for enslaving them and for still not treating them fairly. They excelled and achieved. They became heroes. Who is this? Do you recognize him? I'll give you some think time. Yes, that is President Barack Hussein Obama being sworn into office as America's 44th president. And remember, he was president twice in a row. Now, sweet Maisie, it's your turn to celebrate just like great 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 grandpa Mose. So it looks like they're celebrating with some hot dogs and having a lot of fun. It's your turn, Maisie, to eat some barbecue and drink some strawberry pop. Who likes strawberry pop? I know I do. It's your turn to celebrate and remember. And one of the ways we're going to remember is to sing a song called My Country 'Tis of Thee, Sweet Land of Liberty, of Thee I sing. Land where my fathers died and marched for freedom. From every mountainside, we want freedom to ring. Ready? My country, 'tis of thee, sweet land of liberty, of thee I sing. Land where my fathers died and marched for freedom from every mountainside. Let freedom ring. My country, 'tis of thee, sweet land of liberty. Of thee I sing, land where my fathers died and marched for freedom from every mountainside. Let freedom ring. Oh, let freedom ring. Oh, let it ring. Oh, let freedom ring. Oh, let it ring. Oh, let freedom ring. Oh, let it ring. Let freedom ring. In Atlanta, let freedom ring. In Chicago, let freedom ring. In Washington, let freedom ring. In New York City, let freedom ring. Oh, let freedom ring. Oh, let it ring. Oh, let freedom ring. Oh, let it ring. Oh, let freedom ring. Oh, let it ring. Let freedom ring. In London, let freedom ring. In Canada, let freedom ring. In Paris, let freedom ring. In China, let freedom ring. Oh, let freedom ring. Oh, let it ring. Oh, let freedom ring. Oh, let it ring. Let freedom ring. Thank you, boys and girls. I hope you enjoyed this story time, and I hope to see you next time. Remember to go to the library's website, hclib.org, for more resources on borrowing books, whether they're books you can touch or ebooks. Thank you very much, and make sure you remember Juneteenth. Bye bye.